Thank you. So, last week we had a conversation about Jesus seeing everything that we do, everything that we think, all of that, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to kind of continue on that conversation a little bit this week. We're going to start out, though, by reading Psalm 63, and I'm going to read it in its entirety. I'm going to come back to it again at the end, so if you want to open your Bibles and turn there, that'll be fine. I'm not going to put it up on the screen because there's too much to flip through, but I want you to be aware of that. Psalm 63. It's a psalm of David when he was in the desert of Judah. You, God, are my God. Earnestly I seek you. I thirst for you. My whole heart longs for you in a dry and parched land where there is no water. I have seen you in the sanctuary and beheld your power and your glory, because your love is better than life. My lips will glorify you. I will praise you as long as I live, and in your name I will lift up my hands. I will be fully satisfied as with the richest of foods, with singing lips. My mouth will praise you. On my bed I will remember you, and will think of you through the watches of the night, because you are my help. I will sing in the shadow of your wings. I will cling to you. Your right hand upholds me. Those who want to kill me will be destroyed. They will go down to the depths of the earth. They will be given over to the sword and become food for the jackals. But the king will rejoice in God. All who swear by God will glory in him, while the mouths of the liars will be silent. As I said last week, we talked about knowing that God, Jesus, sees everything, even our thoughts, in vivid detail. It means we're never alone. Someone is always with us. I was asked by someone last week where it says that in the Bible. So I figured I'd give you at least one verse this week to prove the statement out. There are dozens, if not more. Proverbs 15:3. The eyes of the Lord are everywhere, keeping watch on the wicked and the good. He sees it all, right? And sometimes that can make us uncomfortable. There were some last week that came to me a little bit discouraged based on the message. Because they, like myself, and probably most of you, we see the worst in ourselves, don't we? It's hard for us to see anything good when we know who we are. Yet, God sees everything. The bad and the good. We need to remember that. Jeremiah 17, verses 9 through 10 says, the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. We know that about ourselves, right? It's one of the reasons we find it so difficult to get hung up on our stuff. We know the heart is deceitful above all things. Beyond cure. We know that we can't possibly understand it. Verse 10 says, I, the Lord, search the heart and examine the mind to reward each person according to their conduct, according to what their deeds deserve. We read that and we think about all that we deserve because of all the negative, because we seem to always get hung up on that. But I want you to notice, He sees it all. Which means He also rewards us for the good, right? God sees it all. It's hard for us to understand how He could possibly love us based on all the bad that we do or the things that are even in our minds. The mind of God, I'm going to say, it's impossible for me to even try to understand God. Paul quoted Isaiah in saying, who knows the mind of the Lord so as to instruct him. It's just not possible for us to know everything about God. It can get really discouraging. In our day-to-day lives, we find all kinds of stress, struggles. People say bad things. People do bad things. We find ourselves in pain, or we watch others in pain and it hurts us. We find it so easy to only see the negative in life, right? Anybody disagree? A perfect example. This morning, as I'm preparing myself for the message, I was dealing with the message and thinking about things that needed to be done, and I realized I needed to do something on my computer. And so I allowed myself to be distracted for a moment. And in that moment, I saw a post on Facebook. It got me upset. In that moment, I couldn't think about anything except the fact that it felt like this church had been forgotten again. In the moment where we feel pain, either because of our choice or because someone else's choice, our minds go haywire. Can't even feel anything beyond the pain. Have you ever experienced that? It's a human trait. We can see it all the way back into the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. They eat of the tree of knowledge, good and evil. Instantly, they focus on all their problems. They're naked, and they have to cover themselves with those leaves. They hear God coming, and they hide. They blame each other. They blame God. Life goes haywire. Fear and pain tend to rule as our primary emotional responses. Think about it for just a second. You're having a great morning. The coffee is especially good this morning. You had a great quiet time. You're feeling really centered and ready to meet the day. And then you walk outside to let the dog in, you step on a sharp stone and cut your foot. How's the rest of your day going to go? Pain, fear, anger, all the negative emotions flood us. And we struggle to be okay at all during the day, right? We started out well, ready for anything, and then something really small, a little stone, makes everything out of control. Instantly we're stuck. Adam and Eve were having a great day. Then comes this little snake, and everything goes bonkers. Every encounter in your life, after that stone, just seems to get worse and worse and worse. First, you yell because you're in pain. The dog runs away because it thinks you're yelling at it. Then you're mad that the dog ran away and you yell at the dog. You're mad because you have to take care of your foot. Now you got to chase the dog. You're yelling at the dog for real now. And then your wife comes out and says, "What's wrong?" And I yell at her because life's out of control. She's hurt and she lashes out. We get the dog inside. Now I have to fix my foot and I can't find the bandages. So, thinking that I'm asking, but angrily yelling, "Where are the Band-Aids?" In response, she yells, "You used them last." Instantly, I remember I used the last one working on a motorcycle, and now I'm angry because I forgot to get more. Later, I get in the car to go to work. The radio, as soon as I turn the car on, extremely loud, which I'm not in the mood for. It makes me even angrier, but I get the radio turned down. Back up, turn around, go to head out of the driveway, and the construction company that's working on the house across the street has my driveway blocked with their trailer. I get out, I scream at the workers. Start their day right. Now you get the point. One little stone. The entire day, the week, the month, can just spiral out of control. Just for a small rock that happened to be outside my door one morning. We might even blame God because He created that stupid stone. We laugh, but we really do that. Things are out of control, the stuff is in the way, we made a bad choice, somebody else made a bad choice, it's God's fault. He could have stopped it. He could have made that rock flat, and then it wouldn't have hurt. It's God's fault. And when we look at our world, and we look at how we interact and react to what's going on in our lives, we assume that God has the same emotional responses that we do to negative stimuli. He sees us do something wrong. He sees the thought that we had in our head. And we can't conceive of reacting to a negative, painful situation in any other way than watching it spiral out of control. We know that's probably not true, but that's just the way we live our lives. So God must be that way too. And we think He's got to have the same emotional responses, and things must be spinning out of control, and He's going to take charge and fix it all. We've always allowed ourselves to react to what we do, what happens to us. And so we assume He will deal with those same things in much the same way. We assume He's going to lash out pretty much the same way we do. He's just going to do it perfectly because He's God. Let me remind you of something. God created us in His image. He's not created in ours. God does feel all the emotional responses. I'm pretty sure of that. But those emotional responses are not who God is. John tells us this in 1 John 4:15-19. If anyone acknowledges that Jesus is the Son of God, God lives in them, they in God. And so we know and rely on the love God has for us. God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God, and God in them. This is how love is made complete among us, so that we will have confidence on the day of judgment. In this world, we are like Jesus. There is no fear in love. A perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. We love because he first loved us. God is love. His response to us is always from that state. His love is not an emotional response. It's a state of mind. Now, you and I, we experience love in our emotions. But that's not love, that's the experience of love. It could be said, love is a choice in the midst of emotions, both positive and negative. We know love is actually an action in the midst of every other thing. You know, God deals with Adam and Eve when he finds them. We know he's love. He deals first with the sin. Who told you you were naked? Then, did you eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil? Then, as any loving response would be, there are consequences for the decisions. Chapter 3 of Genesis, you can see all of this break down. We read it as a inflicting revenge on Adam and Eve, on the serpent. We completely miss the next part of love. He pours out his care and concern for all of them. While we assume it's all about the revenge, you did it wrong, God said they did it wrong, and he got them back. And we assume that because, well, that's what we would do. But is it revenge? Adam and Eve were standing there in a perfect environment. Where they were completely comfortable being naked. They were cold, they were hot, had everything they ever needed. And yet, God, in his infinite love, crafted clothing out of skins of animals for them. Because he knew that from that day forward, they would not be in the comfort of the garden. They would not only need coverings to cover their nakedness, they would also need covering to protect them from the elements. The consequences of my yelling at the dog and my wife and the construction crew, those are going to be real. The consequences are going to be necessary. But that is not a lack of God's love. This is a response to sin. Every day, we have an opportunity to remember the response of love and our response of love. John told us that if we live for Christ, then we'll be able to live in love. We love because he first loved us. How can we do that? It's not a natural response. We already talked about that. Step on a stone and everything goes out of control. A little bit of pain Goes a long way, right? How do we deal with this? Well, first of all, it's a conditioned thought process. And it only improves with a lot of practice and perseverance, especially when things are not going our way. I don't know how many times people have come to me with their pity me stories, their woe, their life is falling apart, and why would God allow this to happen in my life? And I try to point out to them how God is loving them, is providing for them in the midst of the consequences of their choices or the choices of others that happen to be in their life. I don't know how many times people have gotten mad at me and say, "That's easy for you to say." And I get it. You know how bad I want to scream? Nope, it's not easy for me. Because it's not. Most of the time, when they come to me with all their struggles, complaining about their life, I've already handled a whole bunch of things wrong in just the moments just before they started talking. Life's not easy. I just did it all wrong. I stepped on that stone and I yelled it because it hurt, and the dog ran away, and I screamed at the dog, and my wife came out concerned, and I yelled at her because I'm hurting, and that's what hurting people do, is hurt people. And then she was hurt, so she yelled at me and hurt me back. Right? I'm just using that as an example, but we get it, because that's exactly how we interact with the world around us. I just called that person I had to talk to, and they didn't take my call. They rejected me. That post on Facebook should have recognized me, because I did that for them, and all they said was, "Look what God did." But I'm angry because they didn't recognize me. They left me out of the equation. That's not right. Anybody ever feel that way? Oh, absolutely. And then they come to me and they want me to tell them how God's not at fault. Because right now I'm feeling like it's God's fault too. And I know it's not. And that makes me mad too. My need and their need is absolutely no different. What has to happen in those moments where everything's falling apart, nothing is going right, my foot hurts, my heart aches, I'm worried about this, that, or the other thing. My need is the exact same need that you have when you're feeling pain, when you're feeling angry, when you're feeling let down or discouraged. The answer to the problem is this: I have to praise the Lord in the midst of the pain. Right? Now, I hear myself saying that, and my mind is screaming, "You're an idiot." So it's okay that you just thought that, but that really is the answer, because I've experienced the truth of that. You know, David knew that process really, really well. Reading through the entirety of the book of Psalms, you will see this process worked out over and over and over again. Now, do you think he got it right away? No, that's why he had to make up all these songs to remind himself, right? Yes, Dave, you had the question. Do you have to mean it? That's a cool. That's a. Well, let me put it to you this way. There's a saying that says, "Fake it till you make it," and that's crap advice. All right. But the truth of the matter is, you train yourself to do what you need to do. It's not faking it. It's doing the next right thing. Right? So the answer is no, you don't have to mean it, but you got to keep doing it until you mean it. Does that make sense? Right? So we always say that the insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, right? And then we assume that sanity must be not doing the same thing over and over again, right? Wrong. Sanity is doing the same thing over and over again because it's the right thing to do. Right? So you do the same thing over and over again because it's the right thing to do until it becomes something that's real in your life. David created hundreds of psalms doing this exact process. Crying out and saying, "My life sucks, God, but you're God, and I love you anyway, and I'm going to praise you no matter what." We started with Psalm 63 at the very beginning of this message, didn't we? Let me read it for you again. You, God, are my God. Earnestly I seek you. I thirst for you. My whole being longs for you. In a dry and parched land where there is no water, I've seen you in the sanctuary and beheld your power and your glory. Because your love is better than life, my lips will glorify you. I will praise you as long as I live, and in your name I will lift up my hands. I will be fully satisfied as with the richest of food. With singing lips my mouth will praise you. On my bed I will remember you. I will think of you through the watches of the night, because you are my help. I sing in the shadow of your wings. I cling to you. Your right hand upholds me. Those who want to kill me will be destroyed. They will go down to the depths of the earth. They will be given over to the sword and become food for the jackals. But the king will rejoice in God. All who swear by God will glory in him, while the mouths of liars will be silenced. In the midst of his need for water, he cried out with his thirst and compared it to his thirst for God. This morning when I got distracted by that post on Facebook, upset about getting forgotten, I turned it around by crying out to God. I know I forget you all the time, Lord, but I don't want to. I know the pain of being forgotten, and I want you to never have to feel that pain from me. Did that prayer change the pain I felt from the post that should have mentioned me and Narrow Path Christian Church? Actually, yes, it did. Not only did I not feel the pain anymore, I also felt God's love pour over me in his provision to not only have what I needed in the moment, but I also then was able to have compassion for the person that I felt had harmed me. Did I purposely forget God in that moment? No. I went to my computer because I had to do something. But I did forget him. Left him out of the equation completely. Got upset. Went down a bad path. Wasn't very long. It was long enough. Much like that stone, it could have derailed my entire day. But because of a lot of practice, for years, I was able to turn it around. My answer to pain in this world is increasingly becoming focused on God. If I feel pain, if I feel anger, if I feel stress, I feel anxiety, I'm upset, I'm tired, hungry, whatever it might be, more and more I'm learning to focus on God and His splendor. One of the best tools that I ever learned on how to work this process out is fasting. Fasting will never get God to do something, just so you know. You can't go fasting and tell God, I'm going to do this until you do X, Y, or Z. You also can't go, God, I need this, and so I'm going to fast to make you happy with me. That doesn't work. And it's not what fasting is about. But if you do a true and proper fast, you know you need food to live. You know it. Without a doubt. I gotta eat or I will die. It's a proven fact, right? How long does it take for somebody to go without food before they are on the verge of death?
41 days.
Scientifically, they say about 41 days. Yep. Without any calories at all, they figure about 41 days before you die. Less without water. Right? Fasting is only about eating, chewing. It's the function of chewing, so you understand that. Right? I need to make that clear because people tell me all the time they can't fast. I have diabetes, I have sugar problems, I have all of these. I get it. You can address those by drinking stuff. All right? I'm here to tell you, when I went through my cancer treatments, I got done. I had lost so much weight. Doctors were on me. I had to start eating. I had to start gaining weight. I had to, it was really, really important that I started taking in as many calories as possible. My body had to gain strength or I still wasn't out of the woods. Right? Cancer was dead, but body was about dead because I was about done. And my pastor at the time called for a church-wide fast, a proper fast. And I didn't think I was going to be able to do it because I had to eat. And I started praying, God, what do I do? Because I really know that you want me to participate in this fast. You want me to draw close to you. Now, I'd already been doing that for months, going through my cancer treatments, drawing close to God. And he reminded me that fasting is about chewing, eating. And I could get my calories by drinking. I could drink a shake a day, the protein shakes and things like that. But if I did it to the point where I always felt full, then I wasn't really fasting. Right? So I learned something tremendous in the process of fasting. The more my stomach screamed, feed me or you'll die, the more I was able to say, yes, God, I know I need food, but I need you more. And in this moment, I'm asking you to talk to me louder than my stomach is talking to me. And it was a training process. Did I mean it in that moment? No, I was hungry, and yet I wanted food. But I was able to say it. 30 days, no food. On the end of 30 days, I meant it. God, I want you more than I want that food. I know you'll sustain me. come off the 30-day fast, you don't go right into eating steak, by the way. My wife and I, we treated ourselves to mashed potatoes that night.
Hey, Greg.
Hey, Grady. We slowly worked back into it, but I can tell you by the end of that 30 days, it truly meant, God, I need you more than I need food. It was amazing. And by the way, I gained weight. The doctors couldn't yell at me for it. So, Dave, go ahead. No, because you're trying to do it for you. It's not denying your flesh so you can get closer to God. It's recognizing that you need God more than you need the life-sustaining food. My answer to pain over the years has increasingly become putting my focus on God and His splendor. In the situation of my pain, my anger, my anxiety, my frustration, my desire to be liked, whatever it might be, as soon as I recognize it, it's to say, God, this is not pleasing to you. My desire is to know you and you alone. So my question today comes down to this. What's your response to the consequences of your life? Whether it's consequences because of your own actions or consequences that you experience in your life because someone else was an idiot. Which happens a lot, doesn't it? Because we live in a broken world with broken people, and hurt people. What's our response in those situations? Is our response like stepping on that rock? Yelling out in pain, then screaming at the dog because it ran away because it was afraid, and then yelling at your wife because she came out to check on you, and then her yelling at you and you being even more angry, and then yelling because you're just yelling, and then getting angry with yourself because you're yelling, and you did something stupid? Or is it more like David? I've seen you in the sanctuary and beheld your power and your glory. Because your love is better than life, my lips will glorify you. I will praise you as long as I live, and in your name I will lift up my hands. I will be fully satisfied as with the richest of foods. With singing lips, my mouth will praise you. On my bed I will remember you. I will think of you through the watches of the night, because you are my help. I will sing in the shadows of your wings. I will cling to you. Your right hand upholds me. At every moment of every day, we have a chance to put our focus on God. And when we can do that, it changes everything. Now the truth is, in the beginning of that process, learning how to do it, first you may not even believe what you're saying. That's true. But often you may even believe it. But just seconds later, you feel pain again. It's not that it didn't work. It's that you have so much pain, so many struggles, that while He gave you provision for that one thing in that moment, the very next moment, He needs to give it to you again. You see, it's almost like He needs the time to stitch together the garment to cover us in our nakedness. He needs the time to bandage all the wounds, to put the ointment on all the irritation. The world we live in is broken. But love covers over so much pain. You know, Peter said it this way in 1 Peter 4:7-9. The end of all things is near. Therefore be alert and sober mind, so that you may pray. Above all, love each other deeply, because love covers over a multitude of sins. Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Yes, God is watching everything. He sees every thought, both positive and negative. But no, God doesn't react the way we do. We are made in His image. He is not made in ours. Therefore, we should act like He does. He will never act like we do. That means, how do we look at this? Well, it's simple. Jesus Christ was 100% God, yet He was still 100% man. He felt every bit of pain that we ever have, and yet He gave us the example of how to deal with that pain in love. He put His focus on God. In the moment, He put His focus on God. So how do you deal with the pain of stepping on that little stone? How do you deal with the person that bumped into you at the grocery store and didn't say sorry? How do you deal with the tripping over the stairs on the way out the door? I don't know about you guys, but I get frustrated when I trip over those stairs. Because it reminds me that I don't have the agility that I used to have. How do you deal with the fact that you have to go from 2 wheels on your motorcycle to 4? I didn't deal with it well. I flat out told my wife, absolutely not, I'm not giving up my 2 wheels. Won't do it. But I knew I needed to. My wife wasn't comfortable on 2 wheels anymore, and I missed riding with my wife. After the accident 2 years ago, I don't blame her. Riding with the extra wheels on the bike is different. It's definitely not the same as riding on 2 wheels. But I also don't hate it. Right? And I'm not as young as I used to be. And so coming to the stop and being able to keep my foot on the brake, put the bike in neutral and stretch my arms is really nice. I can't do that when I'm on 2 wheels. How do we interact with the negative in the world? Maybe I handled an interaction with my wife wrong. Right? Walked in the door, perfect example. Yesterday came in and told my wife I need to take the motorcycle for a run. I got to make sure that I got everything back together the way it needed to be, because I finished putting the extra wheels on the bike. And I had to take it apart. I put it together with the mechanicals to make sure it would all work, and then I had to take it back apart so I could put the cosmetic stuff on. And I had to put it back together and make sure it was all good, and so I wanted to take it for a ride to make sure it was all good, right? We have a rule in our house. One of us leaves, we have to give the other person a kiss. It's just a rule. We started it from day one, and it's a good thing, because you never know what's going to happen. You don't want that regret, right? Came in and told me I was going to take the bike for a ride, and I went and did some stuff. I got on the motorcycle and left. I ain't give my wife a kiss. The other rule is when you get home, you come in and you give them a kiss and let them know you're home. I came home, I had a couple more things to do on the bike, and I got busy. She didn't know I'd come home. She could have yelled at me. She sent me a text and said, "You left without giving me a kiss." I happened to notice the text message because I was using the phone and the camera on the phone to see something underneath. Haven't done that. I can't see this part, so I stick the phone in there and shine a flashlight in there, and then I can see the screen and see what I need to see. And I noticed the text message. And I opened my phone. I came in. But the first thing I did was say, "Lord, I didn't mean to forget you in that moment. And I definitely didn't mean to forget my wife." I came in and apologized to my wife. Now, old Jay, 15 years ago Jay, would have said, "She'll get over it. I told her a long time ago," and this is true. I'm not proud of this. When we met, I told her she just had to deal with the fact that I wouldn't be around all the time. Come hunting season, I was always going to be gone. She'd get evenings after dark with me, and that was it. That's the way I treated her, and that wasn't right. I've learned some things. I seek to see God first. And in seeing Him, I see His love for me. In seeing His love for me, I'm able to share that love with others. Right? And so, yeah, people come to me with their stories of woe, and I try to show them how God is giving His provision and giving them clothing made out of skins of animals, even though they don't get to live in the garden anymore, and reminding them that He knew that. That's why He gave them clothing out of skin instead of just those little palm leaves that aren't going to provide much protection at all that they came up with. Yes, I've dealt with a lot of stuff moments before that. But because of God's love for me, I'm able to show them God's love for them. Do I like it when they do it to me? People do it to me? If I'm honest, not really. Most of the time I don't like it. But it's what I need. So again, the question. What is your response to stepping on that stone? Is it dealing with it the way you always have? Or are you going to look to change everything and deal with it the way David did? That's the question today. Father God, I praise you and thank you for everything you do in our lives, and I ask that right now we make a conscious decision. And while some of us in this room will say, I'm not ready to make that decision, they just made a conscious decision by saying they're not ready. And Lord, I would ask, through your Spirit, you remind us of our opportunity in the midst of all the negative emotional responses to life, that we have an opportunity to act in love, first towards you, and then by doing that, loving others. I pray that you move mightily through this community because of our choice today. I pray this is learning. I appreciate y'all being here. I'm going to play this last song, and you can mill about or whatever you need to do, but I think it's a good song to end the day with.